Welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. This is Bender. We got Stonkington this morning. Thankfully, I don't have to. We still missing HellsBells. We don't have Sun this morning. So I am thankful and happy that Stonkington is here this morning to join me. It is Monday, August 7th, 2023. Let's get into it. Normally, HellsBells would cover some news events, things that happened over the weekend, that sort of thing. I don't have anything. There's not much. The only headlines I see, there was a oil giant, Saudi Aramco posts 38% fall in Q2 profit. It seems like a light week on earnings. Stonkington, you mentioned a couple of the small caps. I think we were talking. You mentioned Rivian reports this week. We got Lucid reporting today. Paramount, Beyond Meat, Palantir. That could be an interesting one. Palantir's been. It is volatile, but it has been on quite the tear. Any of the other big name, small cap names that you can think of?
Oh, we got Disney on Wednesday. We've got Wendy's. Let's see, Roblox before the open on Wednesday. That could be interesting. And then some less.
Roblox could definitely be interesting.
Yeah. Sure. They seem to have some kind of. They're like the video game company that seems to have been able to unlock the permanent money printer. So that will be good to hear about.
And you know what? I don't know if you've been on the Roblox, but all the games I've seen so far, with the exception of like one, most of them suck. I don't get it.
Yeah.
They're not like, these aren't. When I grew up playing video games, right? And each time a new console came out or a new title came out, it was always about like the graphics. Like, how much better could they make the game look, and how much more realistic and more engaging could they make it look? And it's almost like games as of late, like the last, couple years, it's like they don't even care about that. I mean, look at some of the most successful, like Minecraft, right? You don't play, the graphics suck in Minecraft. Nobody plays Minecraft. It's like little blocky. It's like all of a sudden that stuff doesn't matter anymore. And you look at the games on Roblox, and most of them are not good, meaning the graphics look like shit, and half the games I've seen, like, they intermittently crash. But yet, for whatever reason, kids are just obsessed with them. I don't get it.
Yeah, I haven't messed with it, haven't explored, but it does seem a little bit straying off the path of what it all used to be about. I did see the thing that was like, oh, they made the Call of Duty killer for Roblox. And it's like, probably not. But
really?
Yeah, like maybe.
Interesting side note is that, not without providing too much detail, but some of you will know what I'm talking about. Any of you that are out there that have a belief that games like Call of Duty incite violence potentially, we were somewhat close to a true story as it relates to that. Somebody that we all were familiar with, that was an avid Call of Duty player, went out on a fishing trip and left a man behind. That's about all I'll say about that. So it can happen though. Speaking of stories, Stonkington, how was your weekend?
Oh my God. Yeah. Great weekend. But if previously on Roadhouse Live, you might have heard about how I had to get the police involved because I thought my car was gone. So that theme continued this weekend as we went down to Mammoth. Had to get the police involved once again. So last time I thought my car was stolen. It's getting fixed up, so I'm borrowing my parents' car. And we're all excited on Thursday night. We're like, why don't we just go down tonight, and we'll be there in the morning, and we can just have fun. And Mammoth is very remote, and when we were about 30, 40 minutes away, we got a flat. We were in my parents' car that I borrowed. Go to check for the spare, because as you guys know, I'm really good at changing spare tires. It's one of my strengths. And
I did not know this about you.
oh yeah, that was more of a, I guess Hells would have appreciated that one, because I think he's still convinced I don't know how to change a tire. But so
That's
anyways,
interesting. He has the same opinion about me. Okay. And I definitely know how to change a tire. So continue.
yes, it must be a theme. So there's no spare. We're 40 minutes from Mammoth, which again is in the middle of nowhere. Crappy cell phone service. It's in the middle of the night, and I already have had a horrible experience with Geico. So I'm like, I don't trust these people to, fix me up. But luckily, within like 5 minutes, a police officer pulls up behind us, and he starts going through like the possible scenarios of like, it's the middle of the night, you're in Mammoth, there's like one tow truck company. So what do you guys want to do? You could try and stay here with your car. I could give you a ride to the campsite, and then you could figure this all out tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. So we were like, all right, we'll take the ride. I'm like, okay, Luna, it's going to be your first ride in the police car. And the cop's like, and what about you, sir? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Not my favorite ride. So I had to like shake that one off. And then we're driving in the middle of the night, and he's like, I am a police officer that has had more training than anyone about how to identify when someone is using or on drugs. And in my head, I'm like, well, are you picking up anything right now? Because I've been the fiance and I were cracking up at the end of it. So he drops us off at the campsite in the middle of the night. We had only taken, what we could fit in this cop car. We have the dogs, we have a tent, and we have sleeping bags, and that's it. It's freezing cold. Basically no sleep. I'm trying to sleep on the ground night one. And then the second day was all spent trying to find new tires, find 4 new tires, because we couldn't just replace one. We had to find someone that could put them on, because they had to take off the hubcaps and all that. So basically we spent like the entire second day driving around trying to find people that had tires. And yeah.
Do you not have like some sort of insurance that will just kind of handle, like our insurance? If I call them and say I got a flat tire and I need to get, like, they'll just kind of handle it.
I mean, I will say after the past 2 weeks of car shit, fuck Geico. I gotta switch. Like, yeah.
All right.
That's all I got on that.
All right. So the 2 times that I've heard stories from you about cops being involved, one was you thought your car was stolen, and the second was for a flat tire. So the string of stories, which involves things like stolen blankets and misplaced hotel room keys, the string continues. It's not. Let's just say you're not an outlaw. Okay.
There you go.
My wife locked our truck keys in my truck an hour away this past weekend. So that was a fun one. She just called the insurance, and they, roadside assistance came and sent somebody. But she calls me at like 10 o'clock at night, over an hour away. And she's like, somehow the keys got locked in the truck. And I'm like, somehow? Okay, we'll go with somehow. She wanted me to go unlock it. I'm like, well, did you call roadside assistance? Oh, I always forget about that. Let me call them. I'm like, yeah, you call them. Let me know how long that's going to take. And it was only like 45 minutes. So turned out to be faster. All right. Let's get into it. Let's get a chart up here. And we will get started.
Nice.
right. Okay, here we go. So this is 60-minute on the ES. I'm going to zoom out just for a minute so you can see the daily, kind of where this starts. This is this daily candle right here. Obviously green thus far. But the levels that I've got on here, some of the ones you'll see when we zoom in, you've got this 618 retracement down here, which we wicked, but the bodies of these candles staying above it so far. That retracement is from this candle's low right here, 44.10 area, up to this candle's high, up around that 46.34 half. The 618 retracement coming in right in here, 44.96 half. Friday, we were looking for a potential seek and destroy type day because pre-market, I had called out that the London session had taken out the Asia session highs and lows, and we were kind of set up for potential to screw both sides. And anybody that was around trading on Friday would note that we did indeed get that type of action. We had this run up here, 45.60, and then they sold it all the way down here, right into and right to the bottom of a weekly fair value gap. If I go back to the weekly, you will see this right here is the bottom of this weekly fair value gap. And they came right down into that, tapped it, and that's where it stopped, right? So what I have this morning, we've got the Asia session low right down here. You can see there's a little gap in here, little volume imbalance right here. So we got the Asia session low, which was right at 4,550 cents. And you got the London session high up here at 45.22. And then we've got the top of this 60-minute fair value gap at 45.38. Now, right now, we're pinging between the 618 and the 50% retracement. This is kind of the bigger picture, is that we're right in between these two fibs, with the Asia session low and the London high being just above here and just under that 50% retracement. If we fall below the Asia session low, now because of this volume imbalance, we might, come down into it, kind of fill it in, get another bounce around this weekly fair value gap bottom. I would expect that if it comes down into here, that it likely would bounce. Doesn't mean it will continue. It may be a bounce and then continuation down. If we fall below that weekly fair value gap bottom and Friday's low there, if we fall below that, around that 44.94, then the next real level that I have is down here, which is the bottom of this 60-minute fair value gap. And there's also an actual gap, regular trading hours gap right there. So that would take us down to 44.78 half. So below 94, then I'd be looking at this 44.78 half. And then you've got another 60-minute fair value gap if that doesn't hold, with the top of that being 44.70. And to fill it, 44.62.75. And then you have a new week opening gap, the top of a new week opening gap below that at 44.60. So that's about, let's see, currently sitting 45.16. So that kind of gives you levels 50 points below, 55. As far as upside, we look to, if we can get above that London session high, fill in this 60-minute fair value gap. That would, again, take us up to 44.37 half. And you can see this trend line. This is the midpoint of that channel is that yellow dotted line, right? If we go back out to, what are we on right now? Let's go out to a 4-hour. Zoom back in. Trying to show the, there you go. kind of the midpoint of that channel right here. So, as we push up, you can see where that channel comes into play, that trend line comes into play. And as we push up, you can see a couple candles came in there. You can see we're pushing right up against the bottom of that trend line. Was resistance here or support here? Resistance right in here. We're pushing right up into the bottom of that, right? So get through this, get through that London session high. Look for the top of this 60-minute fair value gap up at 45.37. And then you have the midpoint of the channel, and then the actual midnight open today, 45.47. I'm thinking. I was looking at this going, if we push, go back to the 15-minute here, you can see this little bounce, this little top right here, the London session high, pushed right into this 15-minute fair value gap, right? So if we're going to come back up into that and we get through it, like it's already been filled in. So I think chances are good that if we get back above the London session high, that we're going to come all the way up here and probably fill in this 60-minute fair value gap, 45.37.75. Because it's already kind of filled in this 15-minute fair value gap. So if it comes and pushes again, there's really no reason for it to do it unless it's going to draw it up into this fair value gap in here. So that would kind of be my lean, is if we do break that, the lean would be that it's going to go ahead and fill in up here to, that 45.37.75 area. If it pushes through that, then it's probably going to take out the midnight open. And then that's kind of where if you manage to catch that run, if it pops over this midnight open, this is where I would be worried about it reversing, is right up in here. That 45.50 area. I think that's kind of the key. And if it can get through that, then we can start to take out some of this other stuff up above. We've got these relative equal highs sitting here that you can see on the 15-minute very clearly. At some point, those are going to be a target. And I think if it gets through that 45.50s, I think that comes into play. I think the most important, as far as giving us direction for the rest of the week, would be what we do with this 45.50 area if we're able to get through it. And then on the flip side, if we fall out of this, what we do around this 44.70, I'm going to say 44.75, kind of what we do with that area. So that'll kind of set up the rest of the week for us. But that's about all I have on the ES chart coming into the morning. Stonkington, what do you got?
Very nice. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, good to kind of catch up on the chart after being out Friday. Let's see. We can talk through some stuff, get the chart going. Looks like we have Sonny here in the room with a mic issue, so we can just talk through real quick. He's got upgrades, Wayfair, D-Dog, Pan W, downgrade, Love, AAL, FE. So there's a headline on Tesla that CFO change. That one's popping over there. Thank you, Sonny. Some good info in here. Let's see. So, and then I kind of thought through some other stuff we want to be aware of for this week. We can just take a look at how I usually check that out. I like the site, the Forex Factory. It highlights color-wise what's significant. So China's doing their CPI Tuesday night, and then we got ours Friday morning or Thursday morning. So that would be something to be aware of. I don't know if you could. Yeah, so we want to be aware of that CPI if you're trying to put on swings, and then Friday's GDP, and that's overnight, and PPI in the morning. And then the other one, I believe I use this site as well. So tomorrow we have Fed speakers. Get out of here. We have Harker and Barkin, who are both voting members. And those are going to be before the open tomorrow. So if you were thinking about swinging anything, you'd want to be aware of these two guys. They'll be before the open. So that's kind of what I'll be aware of. We mentioned some of the ERs, plugs on the list too, Disney. So then if we kind of we can jump into the charts. One thing I'll be thinking about this week, There was commentary on Fast Money last week that so Friday, Amazon was twice as green as Apple was red, and we still got that sell off with Apple kind of leading the downside move at the end of last week. So that I think Apple will be important. We can get into that chart here in a minute. But I kind of wanted to start by just breaking down some of the things on the NASDAQ that I will be looking for this week. We talked last week a little bit about this fair value gap here on the NASDAQ. It would be this one. And so basically what I was saying is, when we closed below this fair value gap, then technically I would be looking for potential resistance, because this would he would then call this an inversion gap once we close below it. So just from the bigger chart perspective, I would be looking at the reaction to that 15,483.75 for fair value gap. But you can see if we did it, based on like that, it still has this little gap to fill in to get up to there. So kind of what I would be looking for just to see when we get up there. But I'll jump up. I have the chart kind of with all my additional markups over here. So let's take a look at that. All right. So let's see. So orange was a fair value gap that would have been left on the weekly, which is now filled in based on this price action. Yellow, those are daily fair value gaps. So we've got some below. If similarly with what Bender was saying, if we push to the downside, first we've got our new week opening gap, which is going to be this little pink box there. And then if we break this low, first downside target I would be looking for would be this 15,278.75 down there. That would be the first target, just based on the daily fair value gap. If we push, I have this line marked up because basically the sell-off overnight would have been one big fair value gap. So this would be first upside target would be that 547 flat. Then our next daily fair value gap, if we pop this, we have potential to run up through here. 728.25, and then you can see this little gap. This was when they did the credit downgrade overnight, was what created this gap, and we filled it almost all the way in. So that's kind of what I'll be looking for on the NASDAQ. If we jump over to the Russell. So the Russell was interesting. We mentioned a lot of small cap ERs that could have impacts: PLTR, Roblox, Plug, Chegg, Paramount. It's just a big list over there. So these orange boxes have already been filled in. These were volume imbalances on the daily, which usually can be significant. If we jump back over to the 4-hour, we've got our pink new week opening gap right there. This is looking like a key level. We can't get any candles to close above this line. Kind of looks like an order block line if we used this green candle that was followed by an aggressive sell. We could think of this green candle as a bull who just wanted to get in cheaper. And basically this is kind of like our range here on the Russell is we've got this line above 1981.3, and then we've got this below that the bodies of the candles keep respecting this one, 1963 flat. So kind of going to watch for that. I think it could be tricky trading on the Russell with all these ERs coming up. So I'm just going to kind of see what the intraday price action looks like. But we've got kind of downside targets below with room down to 1944.10. And if we can kind of run this, first break and hold this and then run this, we've got these are smaller time frame fair value gaps above that we can kind of keep an eye on. Looks like everything else has kind of been filled in. Maybe a little bit of room up through here would be a fair value gap once we get rid of all this other stuff here. Let's see. Let's check out some individual tickers. We've got Meta was a weekly inside bar. I'm going to be focusing on Meta this week. This kind of is starting to look like a big flag right here. I like the setup. So we'll see what we get on flow. but be looking for this trend line to pop. For trigger upside, I'm going to be looking at this 313.45. For downside, I'll be looking at this 309.90, and then we've got our earnings gap. Meta reported well and popped there. And then I mentioned the importance of Apple. Basically, Fast Money commentary end of last week was, Apple's weighting in basically every ETF is, going to be significant if Apple's going to lead the charge to the downside. So I dropped the dark pools in the room. This was the one from Friday on Apple. Nice size for Apple, 7.3%. So if we're going to drop below that 181.99, I'd be looking for that to retest and hold as resistance. So this would be kind of like a put trigger here above. I'll be looking at that 183.15. And Apple does have a dividend this week, so we'll have to keep that in mind. We may not get as many signals from flow as a week without a dividend. And other than that, just going to kind of read the flow out and see what we get.
Sounds good. I was going to take a quick look at, I've got a Bitcoin chart up right here. Just a quick update on where that's at. You can see it's currently sitting just below that 382 retracement of 382 fib. We've talked about this chart for the last couple of weeks, and looking at it, obviously right now, the pressure is to the downside. I think if you're looking, anybody that's looking at this, if you're already long Bitcoin, then you got to be looking at this going, well, it's below that 382. Maybe it comes down to this 50% retracement again, or comes all the way down to it and tests that, which is 28,306.20. 618 obviously being below 27,464.32. Maybe you get that pull into that zone. This candle's wick and then push back up into this daily fair value gap. It's like this is the level that it has to break to get momentum to the upside, right? 29,732.30. You need to get above that and hold it. This down candle that kind of started this move, that's where I have the label that says needs above, and that's 30K. Bitcoin needs to get above 30K and hold it. And that would, I think, trigger a move higher, likely above 32,000, if it can get above that and hold it. Until that happens, then I think we're still looking for these levels down here to get tested potentially. Now, obviously, this can change very quickly. Again, if we find it over 30K and that becomes support, then I think it's got a good shot at taking out 32. As long as this area in here holds 27,464, it can come all the way down into here and it's still healthy. As long as this area in here holds, it's okay. It still looks good, bigger picture wise. So what I'm saying is short term is you kind of missed the sell opportunity at that 1618 extension. It's hard to sell it in here when you don't have maybe a ton to the downside that you'd be looking for. This wouldn't be worth it in here for me to short it or anything like that. I'd be looking for potential longs right in here. So it's kind of no man's land right now. It's kind of right in the middle or in between of, okay, well, I don't quite want to buy it yet, but I don't necessarily know that I'd want to sell it either. There hasn't been any damage done on this pullback. If anything, it's offering better entries. If we zoom out and we look at the weekly chart, on the Bitcoin. This 50% retracement of the down move, which was also the 1618 extension of this up move. Like if you were going to sell it, that's where you would sell it. If you were going to short it, that's where you would have shorted it, right? But now, as long as this trend continues of push up, pull back, this one pulled back just below that 50% retracement, and we had a push up and a pull back, and I think that was about the same. Push up made a higher high, not quite the same sort of pressure, upside pressure or momentum as these past moves, right? This just made a slightly higher high. But as long as it pulls back in here and it continues to hold, that 27, whatever we said it was, 27.4, 27.3, if it continues to hold in there, then it still looks good for a push higher. It's expected that the first trip to this 50% retracement is going to be met with resistance, because anybody that wanted to sell and missed this move down, well, this is their opportunity to either exit a position or look to get short. So you expect that resistance to be there. This is not surprising. Once it gets through there, then you've got that 618 retracement being the next target, the next real resistance zone, right? So that's why I say if it can get back above, going back to the daily, if it can get back above 30K, I think it's got a decent shot at that 32, which would be just above that 50% retracement. And above that is where it really can kind of get like a vacuum, get drawn up to this 618. That's the Bitcoin chart. I did see there was an upgrade on Fortinet this morning. They got a price target increase to $70. And it is down here around that $57 level. I don't know if there was any news that would have impacted them this morning, but obviously this drop was an ER drop. I don't know if it will fill this gap, but it is trading right down around this daily gap, right in here. So you're trading down into it. Fortinet could be an interesting one to the upside. If this is overdone and it finds support in here and it starts moving up, which it is thus far not willing to do, but if it starts moving up, this could be an interesting play. I'll end up setting an alert here at this 58.91, see if it crosses that. Above that, it probably will look to enter that gap if it can get above that and hold. So keep an eye on the Fortinet. That's about all I got. Got anything else? Stonkington, you got anything else? Stonkington does not have anything else. We got about 5 minutes till the open. Don't screw it up. Hope you all have a profitable day, and see you shortly in the Roadhouse.